Hey guys, John here. So this video is my full interview with Chief Engineer Sheldon Brown from Toyota. He is engineer for both Tacoma, Tundra, and also Sequoia. Some of the questions that I asked him were actually from you guys. Other ones organically made their way into the interview. It was about like 2 hours and 5 minutes long. I did edit it down a little bit for you guys, so it's under 2 hours. But what I also did for you is I will take out all the ads in the actual YouTube video. So only an ad in the beginning and an ad at the end. Nothing in between, just in case you guys want to listen to this kind of podcast style, or if you want to just do it at times 1.5 speed or whatever to get through it if you guys want. And there's no ads to interrupt your viewing experience for that. So leave a like for that. I would appreciate it. But we touch on Tacoma pricing. We touch on should you put premium in the Land Cruiser, why the Tacoma gas tank is so small, what future plans he has for Tundra, what things he wants to touch on, what is his dream Tacoma build, a lot of other questions. I tried my hardest to do all the chapters, but if there are some things that I missed, just let me know down in the comments what timestamp that was, and I will add it to the video for everyone else in the future. But guys, I hope you enjoy it. It was kind of question Q&A based, as well as just two dudes talking about trucks as well. So I appreciate Sheldon's time, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. Everyone, we have Chief Engineer for Tacoma here, Mr. Sheldon Brown, and also Tundra now too, sir, correct?
Recently, yeah, back in March, I acquired Tundra Sequoia as well.
And you are in Japan right now, living in Japan.
I am, yeah. No, I just started a 2-year assignment here. Still dual cap with North American responsibilities, but working on some of our next product here. So it was a good time to be here mostly. So back and forth, but living here predominantly.
So you will be coming back to the States, but majority of the life will be spent for the next 2 years in Japan.
Yeah, the team in North America is Randy and Rob and some of the other guys are taking care of the day-to-day stuff. I'm in touch with them pretty much every morning, and we sit down and have our dialogue. But yeah, we're doing it in both. It's always been a global project, regardless of what we've been working on. So, but right now we're doing some new development activity, and so it was good to be here, primarily. So I get back every 4 to 6 weeks or so. I'll get back to the U.S. and for a week or two. So
dang, nice. Is it a culture shock? Is this your first time living in Japan, or?
First time living here. I've spent a lot of time here, business travel, visited for, extended periods of time, meaning, several weeks at a time from in the past, but this is the first time I'm, fully, I actually have an address in, as you can see in the background here. Sorry, I don't have a screensaver, but
right.
my bodacious abode here. But yeah, no, it's first time living here, so it's fun. It's neat. It's great. It's great to have an opportunity to really, truly be part of a different culture and sort of experience all that. So
yeah, when I was in the Air Force and lived in Korea for a year, it's I mean, America. It's great, and that's what we're taught to say, like America's the best, but when you go and live in other countries, it really, one, allows you to appreciate what you have, but also just other countries' takes too on America. It's crazy. You're either from Texas, Hollywood, or New York, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like when you're there.
Yeah, no, it's true, and it's funny because it's great because the Olympics are great; they're global, but it's kind of interesting. I'm watching a lot more judo over here than I did back in the American beat. So yeah, you get a little different flavor for how everybody else sees the Olympics and where they put their priorities. So yeah, awesome. Really cool.
Well, good stuff. Well, I have a bunch of questions curated. I asked my community on the community tab a whole bunch of questions for you. Some were very good ones. Other ones were kind of like, all right, well, we'll filter those ones out. But I was able to curate some good ones, and we'll just rock with them and then see where the conversation leads us. So I guess since you're in Japan, the Land Cruiser is built in Japan, and I know you are Tacoma and Tundra and Sequoia right now. But I made a pretty controversial video the other day of putting regular gas into my Land Cruiser, and it requires or recommends premium gas, and to my knowledge that 2.4 turbo is the same ish that's in the Tacoma and the new 4Runner, and same with the hybrid system, but I've been told that the ECU may be tuned differently. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't. I want to be careful not to speak directly to Land Cruiser, but the outgoing Land Cruiser was a kind of a premium vehicle. It utilized premium fuel. It's a global vehicle as well. So probably, again, I wasn't in the room when all those decisions were made, but my guess would be that they made a decision that they wanted to keep that and probably get a little better horsepower and stuff like that out of it, and then makes sense for a global tune. And
Gotcha.
Given that the outgoing model was premium based, it's sort of consistent with sort of what we've had in market and what we continue to put in market. The great news is our software and all of our engines we protect for knock, right? So if regardless if someone puts the non-recommended fuel, we're gonna make sure that we protect you and we don't have any engine knock. The same goes for the trucks that we have here in North America. We just knew that specifically for Tacoma. Really even Tundra and I'll throw Sequoia and 4Runner in there as well. Really our goal was North America to make sure that we all the numbers that we post, they're based on 87 octane.
Okay.
Regular fuel, if you will, and we think that's important to the truck customer, specifically the truck customer, and so we wanted to try to stay true to that. Yeah,
because it's just weird because on paper, it all looks the same, and to an untrained person, and of course that was the thing, and the comments were like, well, if you could afford a Land Cruiser, you could afford a gas. I'm like, well, that's not my case here. That my detective work that I'm trying to do. It's just to me, it's the same engine. The horsepower and torque numbers read the same. Maybe it comes on a little bit differently, right? Like at your peak power and stuff. But I ran about 4 tanks of gas with it at regular. And I didn't tell a whole bunch of a difference until I was on then tank 2 of premium. I put it back on. I'm like, oh, it feels like just a tad bit more punchy at the low end and stuff. And I wasn't sure if it's just butt dyno making me feel better that I paid $4.50 a gallon versus $3.50 or what. But it felt a little bit different.
I mean, I'm not an engine cal expert by any stretch of the imagination. We have an incredible group of engineers who spend thousands and thousands of hours working through all that and figuring out all the different combustion configurations. But by and large, I mean, you would expect that on a lower octane, you're probably going to be retarding spark a little bit sooner, which means you're going to be losing some peak power. So when we recommend that you use it, we do it for a reason, and it's a good idea to follow that. It's again, this is Land Cruiser in particular. Land Cruiser is known worldwide, world over, for being just the king of off road, and so I think they wanted to stay consistent with that, and especially when you start to look across emissions differences and requirements for all the different destinations that Land Cruiser goes to, it can become pretty tricky because there's differences in fuel quality all over the world. And so you got to you have to account for that. So when you start making multiple different configurations, your cals start to just absolutely go crazy. So
understood. Yeah, no, that makes sense because in other markets it's called the Prado because they also get the 300 series, right? And I was talking with Mr. Kurt Williams about that. I was like, why didn't they just call it the Prado here? So people stop saying it's a Prado. And he's like, well. Typically in markets where another Land Cruiser series is called a Prado, it's because they also have the actual big one, the Land Cruiser. So since now we don't have that, that's why they call it, I guess, the Land Cruiser here for our market, which I didn't know that.
Well, and globally, we've got a 70 series, that's out there as well. So, there's a lot of different makes of Land Cruiser. If you're thinking back, back in time, if you will, if you look globally, we've always had these different variations of the models, and so I think they wanted to keep the Land Cruiser name for sure in North America. And I mean, it's probably it's just it's a different. We do the same thing in some of our other vehicles as well. You can see. Like an RX might be called something different, very similar variation when it goes to Japan. So, that's not too terribly uncommon to maintain sort of brand integrity and recognition within the markets, right? And so,
yes, sir.
Changing names, Prado probably feels strange to North America, where Land Cruiser makes a lot of sense. And again, same, different name, same vehicle. So
okay. And then talking about emissions and everything throughout the whole market and stuff, another question an individual asked, with these new trucks, obviously there's stricter emissions all the time, year after year after year. And I'm not too well versed in this, but apparently there's even stricter emissions coming potentially, depending on administrations and stuff, in 2027. So how far out does Toyota, I guess, plan future things? Is there a lot of variable for change? Of course, people ask, will we ever see a V8 in the Tundra again? I mean, like, how far out will it go? Like, will eventually things be all EV? I know Toyota really likes their hybrid components, which personally I feel like is the best way to move forward. But
Sure.
how strict will it get, and how small will these engines get? Or is there some light at the end of the tunnel to go back to some sort of old school way?
Yeah, boy, I tell you what, if I could answer that question, man, I'd probably have a different job and be running the world. No, the truth be told, 27, as far as we know, is pretty much a done deal. That legislation's in writing. So we know we've got Lev 4 for the ZEV states coming out of CARB, and we know we have Tier 4 coming out of EPA emissions. Kind of what happens next after they sort of relaxed a little bit of the slope, I think still remains to be determined. So it's a little bit unclear for all of us. But we do know that, Lev 4 and Tier 4 are going to be pretty stringent, especially in the PM area of emissions, the particulate matter. In almost most cases, I want to speak for every technology out there, but, looking at things like gas particulate filters, the problem, of course, with those is they do have a lot of back pressure, which indirectly means, drop in horsepower. So we're trying to do a lot to make sure that we can achieve those, but still remediate any sort of side effect. So rather than, changing displacement, we're really trying to use some different technologies. But all of those things, they're really good for the emissions performance of the vehicles, which is a great thing, right? Something Toyota is absolutely committed to. Something we've been preaching for a very long time with our hybrid technology, and making sure that we're being good environmental stewards. But it's going to take some doing, and so there's going to be some technology that's going to be needed to be added to these engines to make sure that they're capable of performing there. Long term, obviously, we think there's Toyota has always said we think there's a place in this world for electrification. We sort of put our money where our mouth was in the hybrid sector, and even in BEV. We've in some cases we've gotten a little bit of a bad rap. I think that our main thing is we need to make sure that it's market driven, and we're giving customers the choice to make sure that they're paying for technology that they want and that they value, and giving them a whole bevy of solutions, because there's sort of this. Sorry, this is maybe a little bit of my opinion, not necessarily directly.
No, that's fine.
There's this sort of panacea that there's a silver bullet to a lot of times. We like that it's because it's easy to package and bundle and put a bow tie on it. But the reality of the situation is, even if you look at our market now, there's so many different technologies that are well suited for different applications.
Right.
So and I think we've always said that we want to have an entire portfolio. Maybe hydrogen, for example, or hydrogen fuel cell may not make sense in the pass car market, just given some distribution and infrastructure items. But when we start looking at like long distance trucking and things of that nature, where we have concentration of usage in specific areas, it might make more sense in those areas where a BEV alternative to like an 18 or like a like an 18 wheeler or a tractor trailer class 8 truck is something that you're going to carry half your payload and batteries. So I think you have to be smart, and I think the way we want to talk about it, it's good to have an energy policy. I think it's good to have some direction, but again, we need to work with the market, with the customer, and then with the application that's best suited for the task at hand, without getting too crazy and having too much I'll say infrastructure investment. But the great news is a lot of those electrical components, like the engines, the motors, and the DC-DC step converters and stuff like that, whether you're putting them in a hybrid or a battery or a plug-in hybrid, they fundamentally the basic I'll say elements of it can be carried over and can be leveraged. So there's a place for electrification in the future. We're big on that, and I think it's just going to be how we want to execute it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely infrastructure. I mean, all these gas stations just didn't pop up overnight, and
that's right.
Personally, without getting crazy political, I feel like the push for EV was just way too much, way too fast. And I know it's been a growing thing, but it's almost like they just wanted to replace this gas infrastructure that has been developing for decades just overnight. That's outside looking in, not actually working on these cars and knowing what you guys have to make. But I love plug-in hybrids. I think it's awesome. I think it's the best of both worlds. I was at a DC auto show, and Toyota's presentation showed that, you know, you can mine a wheelbarrow of stuff and get either one EV car, you could get, I think it was like 10 plug-in hybrids, or you could get like 50 actual hybrids. And ironically, their conference was like followed up by Lamborghini, which I thought was the funniest thing ever. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just interested to see where everything goes, and like, will trucks still be trucks? Will they crazy outperform the V8s of the past and stuff? It'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I guess staying on gas, tiny gas tank in the Tacoma.
Tiny? Is it tiny?
I mean, so it's not tiny when the truck.
Is it 3 gallons or less than 3 gallons smaller?
I think, three. Okay, let me rephrase that. Not the same size as the last gen. And when I was talking with Craig about it in my first interview with him, it totally makes sense, right? The truck gets X% better of fuel economy, so we can make the tank smaller. Range is basically the same. Now it's our fault, right? And I'm not blaming you, but when you lift the truck, you put bigger tires on it, you do all this stuff to it, obviously range diminishes a lot, and that boost in MPG that you're getting from an improved powertrain is non-existent now, right? So what led to a smaller gas tank? Was it packaging? Did it help? Like, why a smaller gas tank? Or is there an option potentially in the future, like Tundra does, for a little bit bigger of a gas tank in certain models?
Yeah, you know, it's a great question, and it's one that we get a lot. And I guess the way I'll have to answer is probably not going to. Well, let me just try to answer it as candidly as I can. The first thing we always look at is we're looking at package, right? And let's be 100% clear. You want to make a vehicle that is as efficient as possible, because carrying around, dense liquid. When I say dense, whatever fuel is, it's probably less than 8 pounds a gallon, whatever the number is for actual fuel. It's dead weight, right? It's actually contributing to the inefficiency of the truck as well. Obviously, it's what you need to propel the truck, so it's necessary evil. So you're really trying to find that good balance. And the truth of the matter is, there are some, in our particular case, there are definitely some packaging constraints. If you think about the overall truck, the length, we talk bumper to bumper, didn't change, right? And we think, width of the truck, while the tread width is slightly wider, fundamentally the door-to-door, so the basic body of the truck, is not so much different, which means that we have roughly the same space underneath the vehicle, if you will. You did see things like we have a larger driveline, we have a larger rear axle, right? We have larger tires and a spare tire in there as well. We have a larger muffler because of we have to remediate a little bit more noise. So the truth of the matter is, it's a lot tighter in there. So there's definitely a constraint that comes in based on, you got to put a bunch of stuff in there. Now, the reality of the situation is, if you look at it, and this is kind of maybe how, from an engineering standpoint of view, we justify it. We say, look, we've improved the efficiency, therefore, let's not carry unnecessary mass, and let's make sure that we're still maintaining what we think is a competitive range. When we look specifically at the Tacoma, so let's say you took a 22 model year and you lifted it and put a bigger tires on it. Well, your 20-gallon tank, which was less efficient, got you the same range. For all intent and purposes, also reduced by about that same amount. So from a actual, customer A to customer B, we really didn't change the overall impact. In fact, the reality of the situation is, actually, in the new generation Tacoma, you probably do a little bit better than you did in the last generation Tacoma, because the impact of those additional, whether it was road load, whether it was mass, whether it was aerodynamic drag, which is a function of the road load that we're talking about. With the 6-speed, we are sort of forced to find the right gear that we need for you. With the 8-speed, and we have I'll say better, if you will, gear segmentation, we can keep that RPM lower. So actually, the impact of what you've done to the truck in the new generation is probably, as a percentage function, less impactful than actually what would have been on par with those same modifications in the previous truck. So when we think about total volume, relative impact isn't so different. In fact, probably better on Tacoma, the next generation Tacoma than the previous, just because of the gearing differences. So I
think a big thing too with that, which people don't realize, and I've traveled from Florida to California. I've threaded the needle of the range in Utah, which was kind of scary. Thank God I was going downhill instead of uphill. But the computer is significantly not nerfed, but I guess it reads probably 2 to 3 gallons you still have, right? So if you filled the truck up, and I actually do the trip with the truck, even when it was stock too, before the tire variance of the difference, the low fuel light will come on and you probably have 40 to 50 miles actually left. And even with that too, when you fill up the truck, I've noticed, like, let's say the range will tell me 299, right? People freak out. It's not even a 300-mile range. But if you look at that with how many miles you actually go, the computer kind of fixes itself over time. And when my truck was stock, I got well over 325 miles of range. So it is on par, definitely, for sure, with the last truck. It's just, for me, I'm like, well, if it gets better mileage, I want a big tank too, and I want like 500 miles of range or something like that.
Yeah, no, I get it. And we did do that a little bit for Tundra, because Tundra does a lot of towing as opposed to Tacoma, where we know that there's going to be, towing is a little bit about, it can be about how many times you got to fill up, right?
Right.
And so you're carrying a little bit more, but that probably is a fraction of what your tow weight is, et cetera. So, but to your point, and it's an important one to note, especially for Tacoma owners who get the original vehicle, we do have a little bit of a learning algorithm. So it's actually going to be taking a look at what have you been doing historically. It's going to weigh that with what did you just do and what are you currently doing. So it's always looking at what have you historically done versus what you're, if you've historically been living, in I'll just say the plain states. Right now you're driving through the mountains. It is going to start to say, well, hey, I need to think about what's actually happening right now. So in those fill ups, it's a harmonic average. And actually what you'll find, especially in the beginning, it's going to continue to basically, I'll say, close that curve. It's sort of an asymptotic curve, and then it's going to get a lot closer to what your real range will become. Okay. So it does take a little bit of time to allow that to happen. And we do that out of out of a sense of, like, I'll say, a little bit to be conservative. We want to make sure that we're never stranding anybody. And of course, that's only looking at the fuel that's in your tank. And the reality of the situation is, you probably have a little bit of fuel that's in the filler pipe, et cetera, that's kind of coming down there as well. So, and there's some sensing variation that goes into it, especially when we get these longer tanks. There's you can get some slosh in the tank, and especially when it gets low. So, again, we're always making sure that the last thing we ever want to do is leave somebody stranded on the side of the road. And so if we're being a little bit conservative, it's sort of our nature. We sort of push to that direction. But to your point, usually even when the low light comes on, it's something where you've got a little bit of room left in there. Right. But I always try to say, it's always good to have a half a tank or more. I mean, that's my kind of thing. But I get it when you're road tripping across the country, right? You don't want to be stopping every 200 miles. You want to get as much as you can because you want to keep that time.
Yeah, when I threaded the needle in Utah and I finally got to a gas station, it filled up 17.9 gallons, and I was like, okay, that's a little too close for comfort.
You're right there, man.
Yeah. Well, we'll dive into Tacoma then, and then we'll talk Tundra. I don't really have any Sequoia questions, but to me they're very similar with it. So for the Tacoma, we're gonna talk about potential future things, what issues you've seen kind of early on that you guys are tackling. We'll definitely talk about price too, because that was a big topic in the beginning, but now that the supply is out there, I do see dealerships coming off of MSRP, but it is still something to note. But we'll start with kind of a happy question. If you were to build your own dream Tacoma, what model is it? What powertrain? What options? What's like Sheldon's Tacoma, your dream Tacoma?
Wow, that a couple people have asked me that, and the short answer is I don't have a great one, because I love the Pro and I love the Trailhunter. I mean, Trailhunter is near and dear to my heart because it was a new brand that we got to develop, and we got to work so closely with all of my colleagues in sales and marketing and others to really make this more than just the chief engineer's concept, but really turn it into something that was viable, and so there's something pretty I'll be honest with you, just personally special about that truck. So I'm bronze oxide Trailhunter will be in my driveway. There's no doubt about it.
Oh wow.
Right now it's a solar octane ORP with the premium package. Dollar for dollar, pound for pound. I mean, that's an incredible truck. And honestly, you don't even need the premium package, to be perfectly honest. We made it so that you could adopt the stabilizer disconnect mechanism without having to go up the ladder and get the premium packages. They're actually separate, but that off-road package, I think the team delivered a really well-rounded performance, minimal body roll, great, in my opinion, great performance both on-road as well as off-road. And then, the Stavy disconnect is just something that, or the stabilizer disconnect is just something that we really wanted to. We really thought that would take the truck to that kind of next level that we wanted to go to. You pair that with the Bilsteins and the piggyback reservoirs on your base TRD package. It's pretty equipment intensive, and I think that's an important thing that we talk to our customers about. They said, "Oh well, you mentioned price, and not to jump down that one right away, but you're to compare today's TRD off-road to yesterday's TRD off-road, as great as the previous truck was. And I love it because I have a special place. I've had 3 of them, and I was weeping when I had to sell my Pro. And the only reason I had to sell it was because basically there's no more room in the stable here.
Right.
But it was a great truck. But this new one, I just think in every single measurable attribute, it's just an all around better truck. And the other one did great, and it will continue to do great in service. Customers who've recently bought it and who enjoy it, but just the ability to bring up to the new platform, the new chassis components, the new driveline, the new transmission, together with the L4 turbo and all the torque and power it delivers so low. There's this. I have a bunch of old trucks. I like to drive them. They're nostalgic. Right. They make me feel good, and I remember the things that when I used to remember that 83 or 84 Toyota truck and the Back to the Future movie and all those cool things that happened. But I'll be honest, when you drive them, I mean, they're not a pleasure to drive any longer when you compare them to their modern day comparisons as an everyday driver. Right. Don't give me everyday. I love to rip them out on a Sunday, and I like to take them out to the trail or something like that, or especially a car show. But yeah, it's anyway, maybe just my opinion. But there's a lot of nostalgia when we talk about those old things, and I'm happy for that, because that means people love vehicles. Right. That's something that we're passionate about here at Toyota, and so I guess the short answer to your question, the long answer to your question. Right now I'm driving the TRD off road, and for me it's a great. And I would tell anybody, people ask me, say, the hybrid's awesome. Don't get me wrong. The hybrid is sick fun. And the engine just really, together with the electric motor, I mean, it's hard not to smile when you drive that truck. But it's dollar for dollar, pound for pound. I don't know that you could beat it. But again, if power is what you like and performance is what you like, boy, that hybrid's. And then the 2400 watt inverter is that's darn handy. Yeah. If you're kind of an outdoor person who uses a refrigerator or some sort of tools or equipment. I mean, it comes in really handy. We had one up where running up in the Upper Peninsula. We were doing some stuff and just test driving around some trails, testing them around some trails, and we had a lot of windfall on the trail, and so we brought our chainsaw, but we only had it was a battery electric chainsaw or a battery operated chainsaw, and we had to clear a bunch of trails, and we were burning through the battery. So having that 2400 watt inverter was awesome, because we were charging those batteries as we ran the trails. So.
Yeah, that's definitely killer, and that leads into future questions. But something that could be on future other models as well with refreshes and stuff. But we have that in the Land Cruiser because it's the hybrid, and we have an IceCo fridge. And when we went to Texas with it, I noticed in my Tundra. Even though it's, I believe, a 400 watt in there, and the fridge shouldn't have taken up that much. I guess it did maybe, but it would turn on the inverter. It would run for 30 minutes, an hour. Then I think it gets too hot, shuts off. And then I have to let it cool down, and it turns back on, shuts off. Whereas in the Land Cruiser, man, it kept that fridge 25 degrees the whole drive down to Tampa, and all of our stuff was nice and cool in it, and it didn't have a single hiccup. So I think it's just those high, unless my Tundra's broke, I don't know. but it was working like awesome. It was so cool. And that's definitely something that if I do get a hybrid Tacoma in the future, that I would definitely build around for like an off-road vehicle. But
so the one thing I'll say, maybe you experienced the older inverter that we're using, or I want to call it older, but the 400 watt, it's still based off an older technology. Previous generation Tacoma had it, right? And I think that the new Tundra has it as well. That runs 400 when in park or when you're idling, etc. But when you're driving, that drops to 100 watt.
Did not know that.
Yeah. So the new 2400 watt, though, we made a point to say, nope, we're keeping it at 2400 watts, whether you move it or not. So we had to do a lot of work on the overall vehicle draw to make sure that we could support that, and the system was capable of supporting that. So those older ones, what you may have been experiencing in the driving situation, was a lower output. And then when you were stopped or when you were idling or something like that, then it would kick up to that 400 watt.
Did not know that. Is that the same in the Tacoma non-hybrid, or is it a newer version of the 400 watt?
No, unfortunately, that's the same for both of those. And
that's good to know.
We'd like to fix. I don't want to say fix it, but
I'm sure that's in the owner's manual that I didn't read for that. When I see 400, I'm like, oh, it's 400.
I think it says 400, 100.
Maybe it does. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at it. So
it may on the flapper of the actual truck.
And then even on the when you turn it on in on the inside of the truck, where you go to start I think it says 400, 100.
Okay.
I know the old generation did, and I should know the answer to this question. Yes. But I'm pretty sure it does say that for you.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, it was good. I agree with you. Solar Octane was my pick, TRD off-road, but I was waiting on the stabilizer disconnect, and in the beginning there was a little bit of a shortage of that. But man, I do enjoy the underground color for sure with that Tacoma.
Can I be honest with you? The underground was like I'm like, oh my god, like which one do I want?
Right.
That underground looks. By the way, I saw your build on the truck. I saw one of your videos. Yeah, that thing looks like you murdered that out. It looks really, really cool.
Yeah, it was. I built it a little too fast, which is why with the Land Cruiser, I just want it to be a little stock for a while and enjoy it. But like really the Tacoma I only had for a month and then it was built. Granted, I did get a lot of seat time going to the West Coast with it, but still it was like what you were saying. I mean, before we get into price a little later, but like you can't just think TRD off-road to TRD off-road of the past, especially too for individuals that bought their TRD off-road in like 2018, 2019. I mean, even the price from those to like the last model 2023s inflated a lot too. But really, like if you're going to compare this new Tacoma, I tell people just to compare the TRD off-road to the TRD Pro of like the last generation. I know that the Fox shocks are potentially a little bit better than the Bilsteins, but like they're both piggyback. This one has the whole new generation of the crawl control and everything too. The engine's better. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like it's
bigger wheels and tires. Overall, more capable. You're pulling max torque at 1700 RPM.
Right.
I mean, it's not the same drive. And we were talking about this to people, like when you're off roading and you're thinking about different things, right? And you're always wanting to make sure you have a little bit of mechanical sympathy, right? You're not just humping on the throttle and bouncing the wheels and protecting the half shafts and stuff. But before, you had a real audible sense that engine was working, right? And you were climbing and climbing and climbing. Now, 1700 to 2400 RPM, and I mean you're right in the power band. So it's not, you don't need that engine to be screaming to be building a lot of power and a lot of drive force. So you got to get used to it a little bit, right? It's understanding the new vehicle and adjusting your driving habits, and what's that audible sense that tells you I might be spinning the wheels a little hard.
Right. It kills me in the comments that I see when people say you're going to stress out that little 4-cylinder, and like I look at my RPMs and they're lower than my third gen was, because I had 2 third-gen Tacomas as well, and unless you're really flooring the piss out of that truck, I never see it past like 2100, 2200 RPM, maybe, like for really anything.
Yeah, and that's where we're getting. I mean, we're getting a lot of drive force, right, in that area, and then we're trying to keep those RPM low. That helps with efficiency, and that translates to you getting better gas mileage. Right. You're not spinning the engine, and so that's kind of what it's all about. So I agree with you. the general perception right now is there's a lot of folks out there that really are, I think, unnecessarily worried about the longevity. We don't change the requirements, right? We in fact we recognize that when we're doing engine development and powertrain development, especially when you're developing for a dedicated turbo, you understand what it is that that turbo is going to go through. You understand that the stresses that are on it, and there's accommodations and things that you do to remediate heat. We talked about it in a lot of our walk-arounds, right? We got this big, giant, water inlet outlet, because we're pumping, it's the size of what we would have normally, spec for a V8 motor. And it's because we gotta move a lot of heat, and we know that. So we build the truck that way. And, we're lubricating those turbos and making sure that they're, they've got floating bearings in them, and using both the engine oil, et cetera, to make sure that we're keeping them cool and we're keeping them lubricated. And yeah, I mean, it's there's a general rule, right? When things spin fast and they spin hard, but we see that in jet engines and a lot of other applications.
Right. So. The with keeping heat down, is that the reason why there's no engine cover on this truck? So I know like that fuel rail is right on top of the truck, and when you open that hood, it's not the prettiest thing, but it's a Toyota, so hopefully you don't have to open the hood that often. But if you're running accessory wires or anything, or popping the hood for whatever reason, some people don't like the way it looks. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, but still.
Honestly, I'd love to tell you that there's it's because of heat rejection, et cetera. But the reality of the situation, it's probably not that. It's probably me. We have the bonnet, the hood.
Right.
We close the hood, you don't see the engine.
Right.
When you want to see the working components of it, do you really want to see a plastic undercover? Because you're there to presumably check the engine, presumably do some maintenance or service. So I understand in some applications, maybe for a luxury vehicle or something along that line, but that's the business end of a truck. And to me, it's just people, they worry about cost, and they worry about mass, or we worry about mass, because it hurts our overall vehicle performance and efficiency. So why am I putting something on, like, do I need a cover under the engine cover? At what point do you stop is where I'm at. And again, maybe it's just the practical nature of how I view it, but that's honestly the real question was, what was the bigger bang for our buck for suppression of noise? Because the reality of the situation is, generally speaking, the smaller displacement engines, they tend to be a little bit louder. And so when we had the opportunity to put the cover, the insulator underneath the hood versus the engine cover, we got a better bang for our buck there, and with the dash silencer, than we did with the other cover. So I wanted to make sure that we used that money, that mass, to put it in areas that had a better, let's say, payback to the customer.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you're right. It people have sort of, I think, become accustomed to seeing all these plastic covers.
Right. But it makes sense though.
Cover under the cover. So yeah, I don't know.
if you really have to do stuff to the engine anyways, I mean, you're taking that cover off, and it's a pain in the butt sometimes to put back on. You have to line up those little nubs and like make sure that it goes on perfectly. I was fighting it with my Tundra the other day because I'm putting it back to stock because I'm trading it in, and by the time this video goes live, I'm going old school. I'm picking up a 2019 TRD Pro. So I wanted to keep this one until the refresh, but we'll get into that later. But I was like, you know what? I've never done a second gen on the channel, and maybe it's time. I don't know. But I was trying to put that cover back on because I was taking the intakes off to put the stock ones back on. I was like, gosh dang it, trying to line it up and stuff. But yeah.
I lost you there for a minute. I don't know if I heard 2019 Pro, and then sorry, we went dark there. So I don't know.
No, you're good.
That was interesting. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just picking up a Pro. Never had it on my channel before, and I think it'd be good to just get that, because I do see people with the recall and stuff right now. A lot are looking back towards the second gen again, even though the remedy that Toyota did is perfect. I mean, that's the remedy that I feel like was the best way to go about it for sure. But I do see people really leaning towards those second gens again.
I mean, the second gens are great trucks. There's no getting around it. And unfortunately, we did have a potential. And the bugaboo for us now is, the hard part is we had a situation where there was a potential. That's the tough part is that there's a potential for debris to have been entrapped or potentially become entrapped or had become entrapped. The reality of the situation is honestly, based on our fallout rate, for most people it probably won't be a problem, but we just can't tell. And honestly, I think I'm really happy with. I don't get to make those decisions. We certainly consult with our quality division. We keep them, sort of separate in just to make sure that there's two different I'll say jurisdictions on how we make those decisions, and we're not. But we work together to make those decisions, and we consult with one another. And I was happy to see that. I said probably the best way to do this is to replace the engine that we just talked about. The problem is it's such a hard thing to diagnose. Is there or isn't there? And because of the fact that we do potentially could lose motor power. It's something that we don't want to trifle with. So we're gonna bite the bullet on this one, I think. But hopefully we do right by our customers. I can only tell you that only being a couple months on the job, it's been a little bit crazy.
Thrown into the fire.
It breaks your but I mean it's not something that we hate to get it wrong. And we have something that potentially puts our customers out. So the best thing that we can do is do right by them now, and that's the best we can do now because we sort of let them down. So we're hopefully going to make this right, and I hope that we can get all of our customers back in good condition and having confidence in their trucks, because that's the most important thing. That's we pride ourselves on quality. We pride ourselves on making sure that we deliver just an absolutely trustworthy truck, to our customers. And so, when we fall short of that, you can be certain that there's a lot of introspective, reflection and consideration for how did we miss something like this. So,
is that part of the reason too, with those job announcements and that expansion? For San Antonio, are all the engines going to be made there, or is it just going to help this process to keeping production on track, plus the extra engines that need to get made to fulfill this recall?
Yeah, I mean, there's fundamentally the expansions are probably talking a little bit longer term about future powertrains and expansion of what we're going to be doing down there, and how we're going to be developing and expanding our footprint into. Right now, most of those engines are being made in our Alabama facility, and for the immediate future, we intend to see that. But we're always rebalancing, because we have to think about what's today's powertrain outlook look like, and then tomorrow, if we're going to be doing different types of powertrains, what's coming in, not just truck, right? We're talking about our global footprint, in our North American footprint. So that's all part of our bigger planning.
Keeping it on with Tacoma, we kind of touched on some issues of Tundra, but for the Tacoma, obviously, first model years have their first model year hiccups and stuff.
They do.
Can you name 5 that are really on your guys' radar with that truck to make the 2025 model even better, or is there not that many yet? I know of the one incident with TFL, grill shutter stuff, which I had on mine, which hasn't come back yet. Some transmission issues. Internet's making it, in my opinion, a little bit more than it needs to be. I'm not sure if there's other ones that you could touch on, or how much you could talk about it, what you guys are planning to fix, just 5 items that are kind of little complaints, I guess.
Well, let me just make sure that that we're talking about it. For usually when we do something, for example, for a 25, for a model year, and while I can't talk to the specifics about the model year, we're looking at things that either there is a reason because of I'll say interchangeability, or there's usually what we're trying to do, we call life cycle management. We're making just upgrades and improvements and tweaks, etc. Those I won't be able to speak to in terms of the product power, etc. But what I can tell you though is when we talk about quality issues, or if we talk about, for example, a manufacturing issue that, or a supplier part quality, or an internal part quality, or design issue that we're starting to see isn't living up to the expectation. We don't wait for model years. That is get there, fix it now. And we have a method that we use to rank and prioritize those. Right? what's the impact to the customer? What's the severity of that impact? How frequent is it? What does it mean in terms of, if we don't nip it in the bud, does it lead to larger or bigger issues down the road? So we sort of use that to help us sort of say, okay, where are we going to focus on? But anytime we launch a truck, and specifically for Tacoma, we really wanted to make sure, coming out of COVID, a huge supply chain, we needed to make sure, we have thousands of suppliers. Those suppliers have thousands of sub-suppliers. And so you just need one person to get it wrong, and you got a bad day, right? If someone has a bad day, and there are supplier partners. That's we build the truck with them, right? And we need them to be on top of their game, and we work with them to make sure that we're all trying to work towards that goal. But things do happen. Sometimes by design, sometimes by manufacturing snafu. So we try to get after those immediately, and so we have something we call the EDER, which is early detection, early resolution, and that's some of the teams like you referenced the TFL issue, and some said, Toyota just sent a bunch of engineers. No, because when that's not the case. When a differential breaks on a trail, that's something that just we're not that was way outside of anything that we would have ever expected, right? So we dispatched based on severity on that particular case, and we had an opportunity where they were willing to collaborate with us to let us get a hold of the truck. We've done the same thing for individual buyers, where we've had a problem. You alluded to a transmission issue where a couple of early transmissions, we found some casting debris in a couple that was basically some residual sand that was it wasn't causing failure, but it was causing hard shift, for example. So in those we immediately identified at a tier 3 supplier that was making the part, and something was a little bit different in the process, and they weren't able to always blast out that residue. So instantly make changes to that. Get that. Those are things that you want to grab in your pipeline really, really early. So we're constantly looking at data, and we're looking to see whenever something spikes up, that's where we really quickly run to that, and we try to fix that. I think you just mentioned, you said you had a problem with the grill shutter, and I know I saw a couple of your videos where it was a little bit of a maybe a little bit of a mystery. Let me put that to rest for you. That you don't have to worry about that being a problem. Very early, we launched about 100, and I think I want to say we delivered about a little over 100 and 50 vehicles very early in maybe February timeframe, and we had 6 issues pop up at our dealers. And so when we see something like that, we're like, something's going on here. So the rub on that, just to give you the background, since you had the issue, is we had again, this was actually a tier 3 pigtail that goes in the actual connector. They have the grommets that make them waterproof, and they built them with one that was a couple of tenths of a millimeter too small. Able to quickly identify that, realize that had been built incorrectly. And what that was allowing was just an ever so slight bit of moisture in there. And on occasion, on not everyone, we actually have 15 trucks that were pre-production builds. Just before that, we had when they had also built those parts incorrectly, and we've got 80,000 miles on them. We've never seen it happen. So what happens if you get a little bit of moisture in there? It interrupts that LIN signal, which is basically talking to the different systems. And when that signal trips, that's when it basically says, "Hey,
that makes so much sense now."
So that's why you would turn it on, turn it off, maybe right after you wash the car. A little bit of moisture might get in there. So it really wasn't the mechanics of the grill shutter as much as it was just the interruption of the signal. Gotcha. Great news is it wasn't a mechanical issue; it was this sort of thing. So the great part about that, and this is what I really applaud our team for. We try not to let any of that. Some of those early holds you heard. As soon as we found that out, we were able to hold I think we had built 18,000 units or something. We were able to basically immediately get to about 16,000 of those vehicles, get them swapped out. So a couple did get through. It sounds like yours was maybe one of them. I think you had one of the earlier trucks.
Yeah, it was February. I think I picked it up February, March.
Well, we 3 days we basically had figured out what the issue was. 6 days we had a clean point at the plant. Within 3 weeks, we had all of those vehicles completely retrofitted. And the great news was, there wasn't really any concerns. The engineering team, decided to make that pigtail a level 1. So that means we could push that out and get that right to you. We did ask our guys to go out there, make sure they inspect those things really thoroughly. If there's any sense of corrosion, then replace the whole system. But if not, the pigtail's an easy swap. So nothing to worry about there. In fact, your vehicle, in all likelihood, is working and operating as intended. Just on occasion, if it lost signal, it would give you that.
Okay.
That's what that error was. So it's a good thing to do. But the other thing is, not to fear too much. If those things typically, when they fail open. Especially since it's not a logic issue, it's not a hardware issue. So that means you're not having a cooling issue on your truck.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's good then to know, because it randomly at like 10,000 miles, and it was a pressure washer. My buddy was detailing my truck, randomly came on, went away. Yeah. And I thought the dealership cleared it out, but I guess the moisture had just gone away. Yeah. And then I washed the truck, and then the next day fired right back up. And I'm like, what the heck? And like you had said, it was really earlier trucks that I saw on the forums, like 100 miles, couple hundred miles, that were having it. But I guess that leads to quality holds and stuff, and some frustrated customers. And now with people making articles about it, I didn't know we were allowed to say it, but I guess bigger companies make articles about it, with the 4Runner getting pushed as well. People don't realize that I guess Toyota would rather nip this in the butt now than the customer having to deal with it, and then with dealerships having to use those resources to now fix this truck that could have been caught like at the port or the staging yards, wherever you guys fix these issues at. I don't know. People get frustrated, but I don't know. I feel like it's better to just, if you guys know it, fix it, versus sending 16,000 trucks out there and then get the press of 16,000 trucks failing.
Yeah, it's honestly, press aside. It's about inconvenience to the customer, right?
Right.
So if we failed to do it right, and like I said, this is a supplier that supplies a different component that then supplies to a third supplier that sends it to us, right? So it's way downstream, which is not an excuse, because the quality is built from the beginning all the way through. But what it is to say is it's you've got to be able to manage that entire flow of the product. And so when we find something like that, we just said let's get in front of this. Let's not inconvenience. Let's not set a bad rep. So we do quality holds for a lot of things, and you got to remember too. Sometimes we do quality holds because we find something and we're not sure if it's when we, for example, we see this issue and we say, okay, we're seeing this, we don't know that the root cause is yet, and so we're going to say, well, hold on, can we define when we first saw it and when we think that we don't see it anymore? And so sometimes quality holds are literally for the point of just let's confirm that didn't happen, right? So nothing's actually gets done to the truck. It's just confirming that the defect wasn't passed through or something like that. And so this is, even if you go back to the Tundra issue, the biggest, the reason why we got such a large thing is not because 100,000 Tundras are going to blow their engine. It's because we can't tell you which one is, right? And so that's kind of the difficult part. If you can't put a clean point on it and you can't be certain of it, then the whole sort of area becomes suspect. Right. So some things it's very good that you can, we can find something coming through the line and then be able to, we'll trace it back and say, okay, this is when the change happened and this is what caused that. Okay, now I know my universe of affected vehicles. So we can put, and again, when the change may or may not have affected all of the vehicles, but it could have. And so sometimes we do a quality hold just for the sake of let's make sure we got it right. So it's a double-edged sword. I know customers are really excited to get their trucks. We want to build them perfect every single time. The reality is, in the launch, sometimes we fail to do that, and so then our immediate response is, what is it that we can do, and how do we make that right to the customer? So we always talk about at the end of the day, we don't want to inconvenience the customer. What's a bigger inconvenience, the late delivery or having to bring your truck back? And so if we can avoid that, we want to do, we always want to do that. Okay. So
no, that makes a lot of sense. Because with most recalls, that's where they're like, well, how do they know it's this VIN to this VIN? It's because, like what you just said, you're able to kind of pinpoint when the fix was. Whereas the Tundra right now, I'm not sure if in the future, if other models may get affected. So like, how did you guys or the team, because my truck was built in February as a 23, and it is not part of that recall, at least as of yet, right? Is it based on numbers of failures for this unknown issue, or not unknown issue, right? But when the fix was actually made, is it based on numbers of failures within that build time, or how did you guys say, hey, February, that was the cutoff on like, I think it was like the 13th or 14th, something like that.
Yeah. I can't speak to the exact details of it, but what I can tell you that as a general rule, typically you can identify causality, and then when you clean causality, then you can say, okay, this from here moving forward, we've identified what the cause is, we've made a correction, and then from that point forward, we should be clean. So in a situation where typically like you have a manufacturing issue defect, if for example a process was changed or a cleaning mechanism was changed or something was taken or a different process was used, that's usually when we can say, okay, we've identified, we have confidence that we have a clean point. So from that clean point, we can say we're confident here. Usually the issue is then the question becomes, going backwards and say, well, where can we identify? Was there a change? Sometimes it's a change that causes, something unintended or unexpected or inadvertent will cause an issue. In which case, then we can say, oh, on such and such a date, this is when the flag popped up. So now we know, okay, here's our section of and we have a lot of traceability across all the different systems. Sometimes we can identify things to a build lot or a build sequence, or like for example, if you had a robot that for example, I'm making up an issue right now, but if you had a manufacturing issue where like a robot missed a maintenance, or if it a weld tip went out early, you could identify, okay, when was the last maintenance, when do we see that defect, and now we can say, okay, we know it's within this thing, so we can go back and again, it might be okay. We'd have to inspect them to make sure they're okay, but that's what we do. It's a lot of detective work to go back through. We try to get it early, so you always want leading indicators, right? You're always trying to be in front of that, and so you're looking at a lot of different parameters throughout manufacturing that we're looking at to say, okay, where are we at? Are we trending early or low? Do we need to pull ahead maintenance, etc.? So that's what a lot of the new, I'll say, digital monitoring systems that we're using now really help us to try to be in front of that. So
gotcha. Yeah, because I mean, it does stink because obviously Toyota doesn't want this to be happening, but it unfortunately is. But I mean, because there are some hybrids, which those aren't involved in the recall, but there's been some hybrid failures, Sequoia as well, which hasn't even been mentioned, and even some 24s, unfortunately, too. So, I mean, it'll just be interesting, I guess. It's not really a question, it's more of just, I guess, a statement just in the future on how this all, but I know that Toyota will do good by their customer no matter what. Since it's a known issue, I personally feel like even with a 24 that's not even involved in a recall, if someone has an issue 40,000 miles in, I mean, it's a known thing. So I feel Toyota will always do right by their customer, hopefully, with that.
Yeah. And the one thing I'll say, though, is that, sometimes it's a little bit easy to sort of jump on. Sometimes we have, like, multiple... I'm not talking Tundra right now, I'm talking generally. Sometimes we'll have, multiple little things that, oh, I heard, we had 6 transmission failures, 2 are this, 2 are that, and 2 are this. And so you've had like these little teeny one-offs and those are really the hard ones to find, right? When you find a big problem, you can usually go back and get after that. It's these abnormalities that are really the ones that make you pull your hair out trying to find them. But
exactly, yeah. And in a pool of trucks, right, and then you have that one outlier. I get that. It is hard to.
Well, and then that's what we spend all of our time. Is this a real problem or is this a one-off? Right. So you're really trying to give yourself gather enough data and take a look at process variability or design robustness, whatever the focus is, to decide this happened once, okay,
right? Or
no, this is we're right on the edge, and we might see some fallout. So we're constantly trying to look at that. And gosh, you want to do it as soon as you can because the supply chain is long and deep, right? So when you got to go back, it takes a while to get after it, and so that's why this EDER activity we do in the beginning is so important. And we're running trucks. We're running trucks all over the country right now. Hundreds, well, I don't know if we're probably pretty close to 100,000 miles, but we're doing mileage accumulation, different environments, different workloads, really stressing the trucks just to be in front of it, so that we know it before hopefully our customers have to experience anything. So
yeah, I mean, in the Facebook pages, there's several customers with 2022s that I think I saw one that was at like 140,000 miles.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, and he's like, I don't know, mine's good, my seat's good, everything, truck's running. I'm like, all right, then that's great, you know.
I had a 21, one of the early ones that came out. I drove it for 2.5 years. I never broke a seat, never had that problem. So, yeah, I mean, not to say that those aren't real issues for those customers, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm diminishing that. Those are things
for
that we
sure
need to get after, but the reality of the situation, like I said, is, and even in this, we talk about the large quantity of or the breadth of this action.
Right.
It's big because I can't tell you which one it is.
Right.
And that's the problem, right? So if you can't tell which one, then you kind of got to do it all. And the other problem is, and I think the quality team did a great job in really trying to like get in front of this and say, well, if we can't inspect for this, we surely don't want to start tearing engines apart, because you probably make a good engine bad really easy if you
correct.
If you do it wrong. You talk about a great way to allow for more contamination. So
right.
I think ultimately that's why they came to that conclusion. But long story short, we're it's a humbling issue for us. We need to make sure that we get this right, and we're trying to inconvenience the customers as little as humanly possible, recognizing that just that level of uncertainty is we certainly haven't lived up to the expectation that we intend to.
Yeah, and it's hard too with it. I mean, Toyota enthusiasts were always a generation behind. So I mean, when the 5th gen Tacoma comes out, people are going to say the 4th gen was so much better. This 5th gen's crap. Oh, the 6th gen, like, it's just we're always a generation behind. It seems like, because I still remember when people said, well, the 2nd gen people say is still the best Tacoma, but like even when the 3rd gen came out, people are like, oh, you got to do the 2nd gen. It's so much better. And then now the 4th gen's out, and it's the same, thing there. But I mean.
You know what I love about that? People love our truck. And
yeah.
I mean, there's nothing that makes me happier in this world to know that people love their vehicles and
right.
that they're so passionate and prideful about what they have. I mean, that's what keeps us in business, and that's what we're looking for. Customer delight.
Right.
I mean, it is our soul and in absolute, it's from the top levels of our company. It's what we do. And when that goes away, that's a bummer, because
right.
That's kind of what we live for. So you know what? I hear it. It doesn't bother me at all. I love it. If you love your 2nd gen or your 3rd gen, you keep on jamming.
Right, right, exactly.
We're ready to come around for a 4th. We got a 4th, and hopefully
right.
we'll have a 5th for you as well.
There you go. Yeah, no, and the comments with I made just a quick update while I was kind of on vacation in Tampa, and we're looking at houses and stuff, and I made a quick update video on the Tundra recall, and the enthusiasts were happy. They're like, that's the best thing. It restored my faith, all this stuff, because like you said, they don't want to be inconvenienced to have a truck torn down. Is it going to be worse? How long am I going to be without my truck? And all that stuff. So that's good. Well, talking about something people don't like, we'll kind of get into Tacoma pricing real quick. But before we do, I guess we'll kind of combine these two questions together. So how much constraint and pressure is placed like on engineering and by the finance department, by regulations? You have to factor in design as well. Ultimately, like, what all factors go into these prices of these trucks?
Well, we're a company that has an ultimate goal of, we want to, again, we're in the business of satisfying customers and making great product, and that is again at the base of everything that we try to do. And so when you take a look at a new vehicle development, regulation, kind of our philosophy. Regulation and new guidelines and things of that nature. That's really on us. We try not to. We don't ever want to pass that along to the customer. That's really engineering's job. And then the one thing I really like about our company and the way we approach it is pricing, and so that's why I actually really don't control. I have very little to say about pricing.
Right.
There's a whole other group that does it, and they look for what is our market planners looking for what's a competitive price in the market for a competitive product. And we work with them to say, okay, what are your priorities in some of those areas? Then it's really our job, to say, okay, if that's the price we can sell it for, we're hoping to make a certain amount of profit on it. Then it's our job as engineering then to go in and figure out how to do that for the cost that we need to make it work.
Right.
So it's not some people do a cost plus. Okay, this is what it cost us, and then here it is. So here you go, customer. We really try to say this is competitive with the market, and then we're going to work, and that's why we pay our engineers to do what they do, and they do a really good job of doing that. And we work really, really closely with our supplier partners, because we need, just beating people up and taking money or really taking bread off of their plate isn't going to make a long-term successful partnership. And that's what you need to do in this industry. to do right by the people that all the groups and all the people that are impacted by these vehicles, and so everyone has to do their part. And so we try to have a really strong relationship with our entire supply base, and that's kind of the approach that we take to do that. With that said, there are things that you talk about price increases, and you look around the market. Bread doesn't cost me the same as it did 5 years ago. Milk doesn't either.
No.
I'm not trying to make excuses for any of
Right.
that stuff. The reality of the world that we live in is that these things do go up, and the reality of the world that we live in is that regulation and compliance and things of that nature do drive some technology and some cost that again we're always trying to offset by something else, but we're also trying to make the truck better. So
Right.
it's a situation where you look at the industry. Really, things have been crazy coming out of COVID. We're starting to settle down. Obviously,
Right.
we had lost a lot of competitive knowledge in the industry in terms of not only people but companies that couldn't make it through. And so, we're all working, I think, in this industry to try to get ourselves sort of turned back around. And I imagine it's more than just automotive, but that's the business that we're in.
Right.
And the reality of the situation is that, they're definitely the cost of doing business, whether it's energy to run the plants, whether it's the raw materials that we're seeing, whether it's the inbound and outbound logistics that we're seeing, that are outside of our control, overseas shipping, things of these natures that, just the reality of the situation is those costs are increasing a little bit. So, but again, that's not our goal is to always insulate our customer from that to the extent that we can.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. If I can sell a truck for less money, and we can still, make a good business. That's the winning solution every single time.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see, like, in the future, because we've never really seen it before, right? I mean, the last 3 years is the most, I mean, not to talk age, but you are a little older than me, but I've never seen, like, this, like, insane increase of inflation so fast. And I don't think a lot of people have, and I think that's why this is, like, the biggest hit, because people are looking at a new gen vehicle. They're looking at these new prices. They're not factoring, like what you said, everything. Some people are, and they justify it. And I'm not saying those other people are wrong by any means, but there's a lot that goes into it. The simple plastic itself, the manufacturer that makes that, how to get that now to you guys, how to ship the whole truck, the dealerships, the lights, everything. And of course, at the end of the day, yes, Toyota wants to make the customers happy, but they're a business, right? No business is really in business to lose money. That's not good business. So, I mean, and there's the higher end trucks like the TRD Pro, and people, I feel, just always see that price instead of seeing the SR that's really only like $1,500 to $2,000 more than the outgoing model, and you get a little bit more too, more standard features like LED lights, CarPlay, wireless CarPlay, like a lot more standard stuff.
We don't just put. We're not just throwing money on the truck. We're giving some. Always trying to provide value back to that customer. And we've heard that even on the entry. We hear even on the entry level trucks. A lot of our customers saying that they want LED lights. That's a demand from them, right? So again, I'm glad you brought it up because we talked about this early on. There's a lot of emphasis that goes on the top stickers, and the reality of the situation is Pro is one of our halos. It's a mono-spec truck. And when we start to put options and take things away, our Pro customers are like, "Well, what do you mean I don't get a sunroof?" Like, okay, so they're mono-spec and they have everything. They're meant to be the halo. It's why we don't. It's not 50% of our market share, right? It's 5%. And the people that really want those trucks, they want the commodity, the amenities that they get in there. But I think the one big thing that I want to make sure that we're being smart about, and I'm glad you brought it up, is we talked about a Tacoma for everybody, and we really talked about how do we really, in an area where we're seeing significant increases, just as in general operating costs, how do we make sure that we deliver a product that for that entry level market and that kind of beginning level market that really satisfies the customer, provides good value, gives them, they still feel like the truck is a better truck than what they had before, and still quite affordable. And that $31,500 entry point with the SR extra cab. I mean, that's really what that truck was focused on, really delivering value for a customer who says, look, I want a basic truck that gives me basic, driving. Still, we never compromise on safety. We're never going to do that, right? That's not our model. It's not our game.
Right.
So you're getting the same sort of, bevy of attributes that you do in some of the higher price trucks, because safety is not something that we're going to charge you for. Now there are things that support other functionality that we're going to ask you. I use the head unit as a perfect example. Some people are like, oh well, you've got an 8-inch or not the head unit, but the audio display.
Mm-hmm.
You got an 8-inch, and some of your competitors have 11-inch. I'm like, actually, we took a very strategic approach to that and said there are people that say I want a big screen, and so we said, okay, here's the best in market.
Right.
At least at launch it was, or at least when we were planning it. And here's a 14. So, but if you don't value that, here's an 8-inch, which is really great. It's bigger than what the outgoing was. And so, it's something for the person that doesn't place value in that. So we really hope that we can, again, Tacoma for everybody and across the lineup. I mean, that SR5 truck, I just want to remind you, in an SR5 truck, I think we're starting in the 2-wheel drive at just under $40,000 or right around there. That's maybe 41,008 or something, I think, when you go to like the 4x4 double cab.
Mm-hmm.
Multi-link rear suspension, you're getting just night and day performance. You're getting the L4 turbo with with all the new power and everything. So you're really getting a substantially better truck overall, and you're not really seeing that big of a leap in pricing. Now we have stretched a little bit. Certainly, we decided that we had customers, not a lot of customers, but we had a large, I'll say 5 to 10% of our customers are coming back saying, look, man, I want a high-end pickup truck. I just don't want a full size. I want to park it in my garage. And that's where we kind of said, okay, let's test the water with the new Limited. Let's really differentiate Limited. Let's make it, I'm not going to call it mass luxury, but let's really make it a high-end, very, very, premium truck, so that the people that say, look, I'm looking for the right size truck. I don't want to give up that. I want to have everything I had, but I like the functionality of a truck. Mm-hmm. So we're really, sorry, I'm going out of camera, but it's a wide range from entry value all the way up to luxury market. And so I want to make sure that we don't lose track of the fact that one of the great things I think that our product planning team did was really allow you like segments to walk that up, so that you could pay for just the stuff that you want, as opposed to having to go, here's the entry and then here's fully spec'd. I think they did a great job in doing that. And right now, probably because of launch, probably because of excitement, you're probably seeing that if you just run to a dealer lot, you're probably seeing that the mix is a little bit rich. But that's not unusual, because of the general market request is, they want a lot of the bells and whistles. And so I think, as you mentioned, you're going to start to see that. And we're starting to finally build inventory, which is great. We've had so few trucks on the lot for so long. I mean, we've been struggling with like a 4-day inventory supply for the last couple of years. I mean, that's crazy skinny. We used to have, pre-COVID, that was unthinkable.
So pre-COVID, they were, which people forget, it seems like my dealership had overflow lots of trucks,
Mm-hmm.
and now that there's 10, 15 Tacomas on the lots, you have people that are freaking out, like they're not selling. It's like, bro, where were you 3 years ago? This is like normal. This is good. People have options. You can actually negotiate with a dealership. Like, it's good.
15 trucks on a lot. Think of it this way. Yeah. If you have 8 different grades in a Tacoma, that means you might have 2 of each truck.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't have 8 trucks, you can't even show everybody what you got. You'd be like, imagine this truck without this, and it looks like, So it's a little bit of a strange thing. And then when we sometimes don't see other inventory on the lot, it makes them stand out. But the reality situation is that it's great for our customers right now, because they can walk up to a dealer. They have a chance to not just say, well, I don't know, I think I want this. I really encourage folks, get out there, work with the dealer, drive those trucks, sport. It's got a sportier tune. It's not the same what you drove before. Drive the ORP. Maybe you like the ORP. Maybe you like the sport. Maybe you like the SR5. SR5 is a great truck. I mean, I said dollar for dollar, pound for pound, I love the ORP, but the reality situation is, the base SR5 is such a huge leap forward from what the previous generation was in terms of the overall drive experience. I mean, it's still a great truck.
Yeah, even the I think one of my favorite ones to drive, where when I go on drive events, I do my recording and stuff, but then I just get in a truck just to drive it and like don't record and just see how it is. And it was a silver SR5 like long bed. And I was like, dang, this is actually pretty good. It feels just like my Tundra. This is weird.
A long bed too, right? And so, and think about that. We didn't even I said 8 grades. Now you start to take those grades and start adding transmissions, manual transmissions, and long beds and short beds, and so, I mean, if you probably wanted to have something so that a customer could walk through and see all the different variations that were available to them, you'd probably need close to 12 to 15 trucks on your lot just to be able to do that, right? So it's strange when I hear someone say, "Oh man, there's way too many trucks." I'm like, man, what world are we in when people bought at least not in the world I lived in, where you bought vehicles like, you never actually saw them and you're sort of buying before they ever show up, right? They roll off the truck and into your garage. So I think it's good for consumers, to be honest with you, because it really gives them a sense to check out the vehicle before they have to buy it. So.
Well, with that, obviously, we touched on it a bit earlier too, but product longevity, right? Like you guys, it's not smart to just give the Tacoma with everything from day one, because, business-wise, how do you convert a customer 3 years from now, 2 years from now, whatever, if you add more stuff to it? And I know you can't talk on future stuff, but maybe touch a little bit based on demand potentially, but future like Tacoma trims, do you think Toyota would ever offer like a TRD off-road extra cab? Like I know we have the pre-runner, but the platform is almost there. Would that ever be a thing? Or like a manual in the pre-runner for those as well? Or a long bed, or like a long bed hybrid TRD off-road, so someone's not forced to go into a Trailhunter if they want like that 6-foot bed. Like how does Toyota determine trims for the future based like on demand, and is that something you guys are looking at in the market?
Yeah, no, we always are cognizant of, or certainly try to be cognizant of what the customer may see as a deficiency in the product lineup, or if there's a want or a large need. The long deck's an interesting one, because most of our long deck volume is taken up in the extra cab application, right, where we know that customer is saying, hey, I want to prioritize deck space, right? And that's what they've asked for. The other areas we wanted to make sure, though, for example, you mentioned the SR5, and even I think through the TRD series, specifically the ORP and the gas models, or I'll say the iForce models, those do have an option. And we do have it in the hybrid, as you mentioned. For Trailhunter, to me, was a really important one, because as a general rule, I'm sort of, there's this juxtaposition of off-road. Off-road is meant to be shorter. The shorter the wheelbase, right, typically the better, helps out with your breakover angle, and it's a little bit better on the trails. Right. Long deck is sort of counterintuitive to that, but that's not to say that everybody runs trails in their off-road truck. Maybe they're just taking it to where they want to go midway up a trail because they got their bike in the back, right? Their motorcycle or something. They're going to go, or maybe it's their snowmobile, and they're going to go run trails or something. So we didn't do it in the hybrid, just because hybrid at launch was around 15 to 19% was sort of our kind of projected take rate in the early period. And as a result of that, when you start to, now you're really starting to throw darts at a dartboard to try to figure out, okay, how many of those are going to be ORPs, etc. Whereas the gas model does a lot more traditionally in terms of the volume in the ORP. So really making sure that it was available there. If there's a demand for it, it's not like we don't have it was developed for Trailhunter, so it's not like we couldn't do it for that. Right. The other thing we have to be a little bit careful about is when you start to get into like I'll say the niche, when you start to say pre-runner, that's already kind of a sub-function, and then if you take that sub-function into a manual, you really start to do a lot of development. You have a lot of investment, or I'll say part variation, if you will, for not a ton of sales, and so that can drive investment, that can drive cost, which you try to be a little bit judicious about that. So we're going to keep watching though, and if that's if there's a demand or a call for that, then that's something that we'll definitely especially if we see the pre-runner take off. Then we're always gonna be watching it for life cycle, and we have a whole group that really does that, does a lot of market analysis, gets the feedback, try to collect those comments and opinions, And then you really try to read out which are the ones that are people that really want it, or just say
say they want it. Like the Supra manual, right? Like the Supra needs a manual, and now they're like, all right, you guys aren't buying it. What the heck?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. We have a little bit of that in our area too. Actually, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say I was supposed to. I really wanted to get a manual, but knowing that I was ended up going to go to Japan, my wife was like, "If you're going to do that, that truck's going to sit there, and I don't want a manual." So I shamefully I'm back in an automatic right now. So, but it's still it's I mean it's a great truck, but I do miss the manual Pro. That was the one that I was someone had to, like the dealer had to like tear the keys out of my hand as I pulled it back in.
Yeah, I mean with the new truck though, a ton of people ask me, why didn't you get a manual? Like they saved it for this truck, and while it stinks, I don't know if I took sales away. And sorry if you can hear, but Chris is washing my 4Runner outside right now. But I don't know. I just wanted to try out the new automatic transmission. It was such a critique from some people from the last gen, and I wanted to see how well improved it was with this gen. So hopefully I didn't take manual sales away, because you guys did, save it, which is awesome, because a lot of people thought that it was going away. But the new auto, it's just so good. I do wish the Pro had like even sometimes my TRD off-road like paddle shifters though, because although not really, I don't know, because when you put that truck into manual mode, you guys did a great job in not allowing the truck to like dummy shift on people. Like you can really rev out those gears and hold them if you want the truck to hold gears, which I actually really applaud, because I've been in other vehicles that you put it in manual mode and it still shifts for you. I'm like, what's the point of even manual mode then?
Yeah, we'll start you. We'll help you starting first, but the upshift is the one that really we kind of make sure you hold that, and that's really good too for like holding that gear when you're coming down a grade or something like that. You just don't want to pop out of that. We do try to get you as close as we can to rev line, or to the rev limiter, and not let you.
Yeah, I think it held at like around 6,000, which I think redline on that truck is 65 or 67.5 or something like that, I think. But it's just fun. When I was out in Johnson Valley with it and just in manual mode, just like drifting that truck around, like it allowed me to build so much confidence as a driver, just being able to do that, which was so much fun.
And paddle shifts was something that we played around with the idea a little bit. I think you saw even in the X-Runner sort of concept that we threw out.
That was so cool.
Was something that was a fun project. I'm still a little special place in my heart for the street truck.
Right.
I hope I'm not the only one out there, but it's I love the off-road vehicles. I've got too many of them, but the street trucks are always pretty slick too.
Yeah, when I showcase that, everyone's like, tell Toyota to do that exact truck with the engine and everything. Well, stuffing the Tundra engine in there, that would be wild for the future if that was in a future vehicle. But I was like, it is a concept, guys, but it'd be so sick. That thing would be a ripper. It'd be so fast. So like price with the TRD Pro, right? We already talked about it, how it is a niche market of those that actually want it. Especially this new truck, I feel like compared to the last one, I feel like it'll be even kind of a smaller market, because the Trailhunter is also kind of sharing that halo spotlight, I guess.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, and man, the high air intake, sorry, not snorkel, sounds so cool on that truck too.
Good, I'm glad you like it.
Oh man, it's so good.
We had some consternations. People either love it or hate it, and so. But
yeah, well, and I heard too from another Toyota person that the prototypes were actually a lot louder than like the production one. I think they said that they toned it down a little bit because some people are like, that's too obnoxious. I'm like, come on, you want to hear it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's like the isodynamic seats. You're going to love them or you're going to hate them.
Right.
I think, I don't think you can argue that they're not super functional, but some people don't like the trade-off.
Yeah.
A lot of people are this, I don't know. So there's certain things like that, and we're okay. We don't want, sometimes I want it to be chocolate, and we want it to be strawberry, and we want it to be vanilla. We don't want it to be Neapolitan, right? So, that's to our detriment. I hope not, but that was part of our thinking, and we said, if you're gonna go put a snorkel on, and you got a turbo, and I mean, like, embrace it, right? Like that's kind of the cool part of it. If you want a quiet luxury truck, then go buy our Limited. That's why we built that for you. So.
Right.
But no, the Trailhunter, you're exactly right. The Trailhunter in the Pro really do live in that segment. We think that they're, and we mentioned, or at least in some of the walkarounds that we did, really we saw this sort of like, Pro is becoming this sort of, if you will, Swiss Army knife, if you will. Was it meant to be a rock crawler and a hauler and a toy hauler, or was it meant to bomb through the desert? And so, we people wanted a performance-oriented truck, but they wanted it for different reasons. And so that's really why we wanted to sort of segment those. We thought that both of them could breathe a little bit better if we did it that way.
That is true, because, those looking at the Pro, there are some people that I see now on social that are buying a Pro that have kind of that overland lifestyle. I'm like, okay, maybe they just like the design of it more and they're going to build it into an overland vehicle. We'll see.
Yeah.
But one of the criticisms I definitely see a lot in the comments, but now knowing that Pro is going to be such a low volume, is will there, again, you guys listen to customer feedback, will there be talks of making ISO seats potentially optional? Because it does take up a lot of space in the back. But if people got to rip that thing around the track like I did in California and also in Scottsdale, and you realize how much those seats are actually working, and if that's what you're using that truck for, you don't want those seats gone. They're really good. But for those that just want a Pro to say they have a Pro, but they also have a family, it may be a little like a hindrance,
Yeah, it's a fair comment. Again, relatively small volume, kind of the trade-off up front, but we're gonna watch that market. I'll be honest, my ideal world would be able to have a situation where we could even have those be people who maybe bought an SR5 would have a variation of that seat if that's what they a lot of people build their SR5s and they want to take them and go off-roading, and so maybe that person who would otherwise buy something different might see value in that. So we're gonna keep looking at that business opportunity. And so as we start to think about if that makes good sense for us to be, if that makes a lot of sense, then we'll probably decide if we want to make that optional or not. Pro has always been kind of monospec, right? Like I said, we always struggle with it doesn't matter what it is. There's if it's really a go fast truck, right? We've always talked about its core identity as a go fast truck, and we always talk about then we want it to be light. So we shouldn't have a sunroof, and we shouldn't have. But the minute you start to take those things away, what do you mean I don't get a sunroof? What do you mean I don't have a power slide window, right? Like, so it's and the point is, a lot of folks really want to say, they want everything and all the options, and that's why Pro has and continues to be, pretty much monospec. And I think we've been. I think you were sort of alluding to the fact that we've got some criticism on pricing and whatever. But as far as competitiveness, when you start to look at everything that you get on the Pro and everything that you get on a Trailhunter, I think I'd argue that we're not uncompetitive at all.
Right.
We're right there within most of the other market, and even if honestly, if you tried to buy the SR5 and sort of build it up to become a Trailhunter, I think I don't know. Different folks have different ways of doing that, but you're getting Under Armour, you're getting a lift, you're getting the suspension, you're getting a stabilizer disconnect mechanism, you're getting all the technology that's core to the ORP. So you're getting bells and whistles like racks and beds and 2400 watt inverters and things like that are really tough to do yourself. But again, light bars, things of that nature.
Yeah, because there's no hiding that the TRD Pro, because it's all on paper, is significantly more expensive than the Ranger Raptor, and that's immediately what people compare it to, which is awesome because in my mind, like a Tundra TRD Pro, Sequoia, 4Runner, they're TRD Pros, right? But this Tacoma is the first that's like, this is an actual Raptor level competitor. Because to me, the Tundra is like a Tremor or like a kind of a ZR2 status, but people for some reason always compare it to a Raptor. But this new Tacoma Pro is a Raptor competitor in the sense of everything. But to me, it has, like what you're saying, it has everything. And I know those that buy the Ford Raptor, Ranger Raptor, it's an awesome truck on paper. I've never actually driven one, but everyone that I watch that drives them, they say it's a badass truck for sure. But you don't even get a moonroof with it. You don't get an automatic tailgate. You don't get like the inverter, like you said. I believe you have to run premium gas on that truck too, which you don't on the Tacoma. So there's pluses and minuses, right? But maybe that buyer that wants the Ford. He's like, I don't care about the moonroof. But then maybe with ownership, they're kind of like, man, it would be nice to have these items. You never know. And then same with like the GM twins and stuff too. They start also lower, and this is what I tried to show in videos and stuff in the past. Like with Toyota, unfortunately, like you can't build your own vehicle like to spec. You can find one super close with allocation if possible, but it'll take a while to get there. But Toyota's kind of like, hey, here's all the stuff. It is an expensive package, but it's how you guys keep it simple. Whereas Chevy and them, they seem to make it look cheaper on paper, but if you want a moonroof, it's a cost. If you want cruise control, it's a cost, which is standard on all the Tacomas, right? If you want this thing, it's an extra cost. So at the end of the day, maybe the Tacoma's a little bit more expensive. Maybe it's right there in line. It just, I guess, depends. But when it comes to the Pro, like you said, though, I mean, it's just, hey, it's everything, I guess. And if you want the Pro, I guess you got to pay the Pro price, you know? I don't know.
I won't get into, I mean, we obviously competitively benchmark our you know, everybody in the industry competitively benchmarks one.
Right.
So it's not to say that we don't look at it, but I don't, you know, usually I refrain from, you know, really getting too deep into what the businesses, there's different business models. How do you want to sell it? Where do you want to sell it? What's your private?
Right.
There's what you can put on paper, then there's what you can find. You know, we don't play any games in the Pro. The Pro it's mono spec for the most part. It is our premium truck, and you get all the bells and whistles. Now, if you want to start with a pretend like you want to start with a lower price, and you can put a package on it, and you're really willing to do that, maybe that's okay. Could you get one? I don't know. You know,
right.
Not gonna speculate. The more you try to put the things a la carte, the more difficult it is to get those to the dealer, or sorry, to the customer. You're trying to get that perfect truck with all these different variations and exactly what they want or don't want. So there's a little bit of what you talked about where there's some things that we put together, but I really want to turn our focus, you know, again, onto like, if you're going to look at pricing, then you should look at spec for spec.
Right.
Now, the reality of the situation is if there's something that you can buy that doesn't have everything on it, and that's what you really want, then, you know, that might be, as a customer, your choice. But
right.
The reality is, through the course of the lineup, and again, starting all the way down from SR moving forward, our team really did try to make sure that there was, you know, you can get, I'll say, subsequently build vehicles at different price points to make sure that we're not, you know, inundating the customer, and that we're really protecting that core market of the folks that everybody wants a Pro. If we could sell, you know, 270,000 Pros for the price of the SRs, I'm sure we probably would, right?
People eat them up. Yeah, I'll take
right?
one.
But then part of it would also, they would lose a little bit of their luster. I'm sure they're over,
sure.
right? Because they're, you know, they become the everyday truck. But
right.
The reality of the situation is, again, I think we've really tried to make sure that we're focusing on that core market. And you can talk about the fringe, but I just, you know, I would always say you gotta shop eyes wide open, and you gotta look at spec to spec.
Right.
Otherwise, what are we talking about? Now, if that spec isn't available, that's a different story. But you know, I think that in many cases, you know, I think again, if you don't do well, you know, I'll just leave it at that. If you look spec to spec, I think there's you know, we offer a lot in that truck, and so that's it might be considered a premium price tag, but you're getting a premium product with a lot of specification, a lot of content that's coming standard in that truck.
For sure. I mean, and that's what I tell people all the time. And you know, if a truck is, let's say the Chevy with the same equipped stuff is $1,000 cheaper, right? Cool. Mm-hmm. Well, do you want a Chevy or do you want a Toyota? If you want a Chevy, go ahead. If you want the Frontier, that's way cheaper, then go with the Frontier. I mean, that's the beauty of America. You can choose whatever you want, right? Whatever you want to spend your hard-earned dollars on. But I definitely encourage my people to say, hey, just build the same exact truck on Chevy's site, Ford's site, Toyota's site, to really see how actually close they really get with each other. And that's all brands. All brands are kind of increasing their prices together, you know, because they're all using, like we touched on earlier, manufacturers. They all have to get the trucks to the dealerships. They're all, you know, using shipping companies and all this stuff. So everyone is seeing it at the end of the day, you know.
And the reality of the situation is, you know, I think what's great about the story today is the competitive market in the compact segment, mid-size segment, is as good as it's ever been. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a win for the customers. And from a Toyota standpoint of view, if I take off my Toyota cap and turn it around, I mean, it's great for the customers. Right. And it's gonna force us to make sure that we're being competitive with our product and making sure that we're delivering world-class product, because, you know, we wanna have our place in that market. So I think it's, you know, you might say, oh, you're just saying that it's corporate talk, but the reality of the situation is, you know, steel sharpens steel, right? And right. We when the segment is competitive, it forces us to do our best work. It forces our competition to do their best work, and it really, the winner in the end is our customer. And again, our goal is to delight the customer. So that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, competition's great. I mean, even for me in YouTube, right? There's some individuals that they don't like competition, or they get upset or jealous when someone's doing better, and it's like, no, we all need to work together, because my viewers watch your videos, your viewers watch my videos, and if we're all getting better together, it benefits everyone. You know, it's just a better environment and a better world. Well, with a competitive market, the Ford Maverick, that's a cool little truck. Tons of like crossover SUV or trucks kind of out there. I know Toyota, man, back in the day, they teased on April Fool's Day a little Yaris kind of Ute pickup truck, and I was like, that would have been so cool. Is that why you're in Japan? you making us a little truck and chicken tax, and it'll still be under 20 grand, or what's going on?
There you go. No, I wish I could talk about all that, but no, you know, it's we're obviously looking across the segment. You know, there's different reasons for different products, and you got to make sure that you're certain areas that you want to make sure that you have competitive segment in, certain areas you want to compete in because you think that you've got good product in there. Now, every vehicle or every company has, you know, a strategy, and you know, some are full, quote unquote, full manufacturers, right? They pass car all the way up to heavy duty trucks. Some are, you know, only focusing in certain areas. They don't make they may not make pickups, or they may not make pass car anymore, for example. So you have to sort of think about where you want to compete, and where's your market, what's your core market, and then how much of that do you want to, you know, the more product you put out there, the more you know, you sort of, even across your own brand, you sort of you can sort of pull customers away. So you want to be strategic about that. You know, we're wanting to make sure that we deliver a product that customers want. So and then you know, making sure that that's in line with sort of our I'll say overall product portfolio. So we continue to study that, look at that market, make sure that we're, you know, we keep tracking everyone in the industry. You know, we benchmark one another. We see what we're doing, what other people are doing, and you know, so we'll continue to study what makes the most sense for a total truck portfolio. What I can tell you today is, you know, we're fairly happy with the range that we have between Tacoma and Tundra, and really the offering that we have, really to be able to give people a difference in size and capability, and you know, have something that's more dedicated for towing and for hauling and family hauling, and something that's more for I'll call it the we vehicle, as opposed to the more of the family size vehicle. So you know, we want to make sure that we intentionally have these a little bit overlapping in terms of the customer dynamic, not necessarily not focusing so much on price as much as customer dynamic and what the customers are looking for, and what size they're looking for, and where are their priorities. You know, we did a lot of work when we did the 4Runner Tacoma, when we were doing the concept for the trucks, you know, recognizing, wow, like there's so much in common between a 4Runner customer and a Tacoma customer. And it really comes down to, you know, what do you want to do with the gear in the back? Do you want it covered, or do you want it open? You know, open? Yeah. And otherwise, you know, I'm oversimplifying the customer dynamic a little bit here. But as a general rule, I would tell you that it was strikingly, or it was shocking how strikingly similar the customer demands are. And that's why you see a lot of the DNA in Tacoma and 4Runner are shared.
I can see that now, yeah.
And to some degree, you see a little bit of it through our brothers. You know, we're constantly taking the way we decided to build these. We call them brothers in terms of the truck development. And so, you know, well, this is what we did for Tundra, and these are core identities of Tundra, and this is where we overlap with Tacoma, and this is where we're unique in sort of the attributes. But we're always trying to take those and keep building, right? So we took some Tundra stuff, and we did this with Tacoma, and now you can imagine our next our next variation of Tundra might come out, we'll pick up some of those things and that are common and really just try to keep progressing the quality and the level of the product.
You're amazing with segues, because that's a question that I have as we shift a little bit away from Tacoma now, because I feel like I was able to ask pretty much all the questions that they had. Sure. There were some other ones like, will the 2400 watt inverter, could you ever use it in like a camping mode without the truck being ran, or does it really need to use the inverter of the gas as well in conjunction with the battery?
So it's an interesting concept, and I won't tell you it's not something that I won't say that we haven't looked at it. There's a couple of things that we need to be careful about when we do that. So to qualify a vehicle as a hybrid, there's certain requirements that the vehicle has to have. Basically, you have to be able to sustain a steady state, right, through like a drive cycle, which means that you can't just deplete a battery and then no longer have a battery. Otherwise, it doesn't constitute a hybrid. So you have to be a little bit careful of that. So there's some areas that we need to progress. There's some other areas that are sort of internal to us in sort of policy and how we do things in terms of, as a general rule, we're not really keen to open the HV basically contactors when people aren't in the vehicle and readily in what we would consider a ready on state, so that we make sure that there's no high voltage leakage or anything like that.
Gotcha.
So there's certain things like that we would have to work around. What I will tell you is it's probably not your ideal situation, but if you were to use it in a camp environment, you can put the vehicle in the ready on, and the vehicle will probably cycle engine off once we get to a certain charge level on the battery. We call it a P charge. It'll come back on and charge the battery up. So it'll in total, though, with a full tank of gas, full load on that inverter, so the full 20 amp load, the 2400 watts, with I'll say the basic cooling required at I'm just gonna, we run these tests at like a nominal, so 70, 75 degrees, something like that, right? Not 110 outside, or where it might require additional load. But basically, the core essentials to run the vehicle, you could run that inverter for 48 hours full load straight. So, every 30 minutes, a little over 30, I think it's like 33 minutes, you'll probably get about to the tune of about 3 charges in there. So that means you'll probably have about 6 minutes of runtime, so maybe 18 minutes of runtime in that 33 window to make sure that we bring that battery back up. And so, if you're sleeping or something at night, it might not be ideal, but if you're just hanging out in the campsite, you could certainly use it to that extent.
Gotcha.
I mean, you wouldn't have any gas left after.
Right. Yeah. We got to get back down. Yeah.
I'd make sure you're on top of that. But
right.
I mean, it's pretty robust. It doesn't really run a ton of energy. It doesn't take a ton of energy to do that. So I don't know if that answered your question, but the short answer is we don't have a product yet that is just battery dedicated in the ready off condition. But there are different ways to use that vehicle.
Okay, gotcha. So now that you're in charge of Tundra, what are your 3 priorities for either a refresh or that you want to tackle? Like, what are your 3 priorities right now with Tundra?
3 priorities. Well, one is getting this little situation we're in taken care of. But again, it's hard for me to talk about future product. Here's what I will tell you, though, and I kind of alluded to it a little bit, is we're always trying to take the product and for a while there we sort of had a product got a little bit long in the tooth. We really don't want to prevent that from happening to the extent possible. So we are really trying to say, okay, let's think about being very strategic, sharing these resources across the 4 brothers, so that we can make sure that they're as affordable as possible, and that we can continue to really bring great product without having to, and really, again, for making that truck better and better every year. There are certainly some areas that we're looking at, and I wouldn't even tell you that, again, these aren't model year based, where you mentioned the seat cover, where I think finally we've got a good countermeasure in place for that, to make sure that for customers who are breaking those up, that we got those fixed and fixed right, so that it doesn't ever happen again.
Right.
I mean, with it's hard to say that, with what we would consider very normal, reasonable use, right?
Right.
You can break anything. We got great engineers who do that all the time for us.
Right.
But yeah, But the reality for Tundra really is to make sure that it stays, competitive. We want to make sure that we're looking at different areas where we can offer, I'll say, some of the additional features, that are technology, I think, in additional features that, help it to stay competitive within its segment, and also really doubling down on driving that quality, and really improving that quality of the truck. Quality improvement is something that we chase that forever. It's always something that we can always do better. We use the word Kaizen, which is continuous improvement, and that's just, that's always making the process better, always making the truck better. So I really can't speak to all of that just because there's a competitive element to it. But what I can say is that I think there's some pretty cool things we have in the pipeline coming. And, we're already talking, down the road, 25 and 26 are almost in the rearview mirror. We're talking 27, 28 and other things that we do too. So we're looking pretty far down the road and really trying to make sure that we keep the Tundra relevant in the pickup truck market.
Because the Tundra, I remember some individuals that worked with Toyota at the launch, because that was actually like my first Toyota event. And I know that it'll never be like a Ford F-150 replacement for like fleet people, or, one of like the domestic brands that's just like, it's a household name, right? But it will never be like part of, I guess, the big three, and that's never been Toyota's intentions with it, because that's the Tacoma, right? The Tacoma is the best-selling truck for Toyota, but I didn't know, like, with those improvements to keep it competitive, like what type of, I guess, market you guys hope to maybe steal from the big three, or is it just to keep it within the Toyota family? Like, hey, the Tacoma has a lot of dope features. Like, the Tundra needs to stay competitive with its little brother so it doesn't get outshined or something,
Well, let me turn that question back on you. What would you like to see?
That's a good one. So I would love
I don't get to answer ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, for sure. I the whole customizable dash is so cool. How you could have 3 different gauges and stuff. That would be really nice, especially for the Tundra too. You could have like a towing screen, a road trip screen, just around town screen. All USB-Cs. The fast charging USB-Cs is really nice on the Tacoma. I use the crap out of that.
Glad you mentioned that, because that gets overlooked in just about everything.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I love it.
Just the USB-C. Okay, good,
yeah.
Good.
The automatic tailgate, the release on both sides is nice, because I've walked on my Tundra after I did the whole road trip with my Tacoma with some yard equipment. I just naturally went to the passenger side. I'm like, oh wait, no, it's on the driver's side, and then put it on. I don't know. There's the Tacoma and the solidness of the Tacoma too. I feel like the Tacoma is put together a little bit better than the Tundra. I just got new seals actually on my truck again, and it's rattling again. So I don't know. I would like to see it a bit more solid. I feel like the Tacoma is.
Yeah. Well, that's all fair. I'll say observations and requests. Again, I think we want to make sure that we tighten up some of the areas that we can on Tundra. It's another one of these things. I jumped. Darn it, I guess this would have been, it had to be after COVID. So maybe after 2021, 2022 timeframe. A couple of buddies and I went up north, and we were running up in the Upper Peninsula. We were running some trails just to get out and stretch our legs and go up there for a weekend and tell stories and drive trucks. I had my 2021 Tundra, and I jumped back into like a 2016 that is just a truck that I had that was sort of modified slightly, just had big tires on it. But it was an old Pro, and it's funny. I love those trucks too. Those V8s were great, and the truck just sounded awesome. And I still love my Tundra. So I have a little of my own nostalgia that goes on. But where I was going with it is just that, again, when I jump back into my other truck and with all the creature features that you get, and just how much smoother it is, and everything, it keeps getting better. And I think there's room for us to continue to push the ceiling in Tundra. It's a long roundabout way of saying that we're committed to making sure that Tundra launched in the COVID period, and and we want to make sure that we're continuing to address any of the issues. For example, you mentioned that you had some concerns with your weather strip or something like that. Those are things that we can always try to improve and try to make better. And then bringing new technology and content, that's something that through the life cycle we want to continue to do. So, again, can't make any promises on all the exact specifications, but as I kind of told you, our strategy is to sort of build and add. You might imagine that some of the things that we want to do there, and then of course that means that it's time for Tundra to make another step too, right? So that they'll I guess Tundra fans, for the Tundra customers, we got some cool stuff coming your way, and I think that the product is going to continue to get some refreshments, and I think get some really nice updates here throughout the next couple of years. And so hopefully we can stay on track with all that, and we can keep our development and all that stuff on track, and really hopefully have some really good life cycle improvements through the course of the next couple of years here. So.
For sure, yeah.
Stay tuned. More to come.
More to come. Yeah. No, I'm really excited. I guess bed storage too. I like the little cubbies that the Tacoma has, and since the Tundra is a composite bed, I'm not sure how close the bed wall gets to it, but it would be nice for little cubbies in the Tundra too, for like straps and whatnot too. But yeah, no, I mean overall, I really like the truck. It's gonna be. I wanted to keep this truck until whenever the refresh was. But with the us potentially buying a house and everything, I was just like, maybe this is the time to sell it. So I think it will be nice to kind of do what you said, like realize all the nice creature comforts, how good the 3.4 actually is driving. I love the powertrain in that truck. And then it's amazing. And then stepping back to like the 5.7 and realizing like, hey, this is a good solid truck. And if it is, which I assume it is, I'll also mention in videos like, hey, this truck as of 2019 is technically 12 years old in its life cycle, but really 5 years old with the 2.5 refresh of 14. So like, it just goes to show like, hey, this is how long the truck was in the life cycle to be this good. But yeah, I can't wait. But it is time to wrap up, sir. I'm sure you have more not important stuff to do, but you got actual Toyota stuff to do than just talk to me. So,
well, my next step is go to bed. But yeah.
It's PM there, 11 p.m. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
I thought it was 11 a.m. like the next day, but I guess okay.
No, we're ahead of you. So it is 1 o'clock in the morning on the August 1st.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
no worries.
I hope you get to sleep in a little bit, but thank you so much for that.
Hey, my pleasure.